MMA boxing talk here. I just want to talk about Michael Bisping. He was on the MMA Hour yesterday with Ariel Helwani. Interesting stuff they were talking about. They were talking about a few things. They also talked about potentially who will be Michael Bisping's first title defense. Who will Michael Bisping face next? They of course he brought up Luke Rockhold, and he said, he lost to Luke 2 years ago, they just fought and it wasn't even close. Luke doesn't deserve the rematch right away, and he also said Chris Weidman, doesn't deserve the title shot either because he lost to the guy that Bisping just knocked out in one round. I understand where he's coming from, and if it's neither one of those guys who get the next title shot, which I don't believe it's fair to do that, they should both fight. Weidman, Rockhold 2. The winner gets a title shot afterwards. That makes total sense. We still want to see Rockhold Weidman, the rematch. And then, there's also Jacare Souza, who he said is definitely more than a worthy opponent. And he deserves the title shot. Jacare really does. Bisping, that's what he said. He brought up Dan Henderson. There's been lots of talk about Dan Henderson. I'm on the fence with that. I'm not really sold on the Dan Henderson. I know he had a great performance over Hector Lombard, but his win over Michael Bisping was 7 years ago. Lots has changed since then, and Dan Henderson has to show me a little more than just beating Hector Lombard. And that's a great win. I'm not taking anything away from that. But I don't think Henderson deserves the next title shot. I don't think Henderson should leapfrog over a guy like Jacare Souza. So I think Jacare at middleweight is the guy to get the title shot. And then we get the Rockhold Weidman rematch in the meantime. The winner gets the title shot afterwards. And there's also one other guy they brought up. And it's very interesting. My first reaction to this wasn't, that I didn't like the sound of it, but Michael Bisping versus Georges St-Pierre potentially. I mean, there's no reports of that being said, but the thing is that Georges St-Pierre said it himself. He's not stuck on fighting for the welterweight title. This would be a middleweight fight. He'd have to move up. Georges St-Pierre can definitely make the 185. There's no doubt about it. And what's interesting about this fight is that, well, for one, it's a huge draw. Both guys are pay-per-view draws, especially Georges St-Pierre, in his return. That'd be a great fight. Bisping showed a lot of respect for Georges St-Pierre, obviously. One of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. But, it's interesting, this fight, Bisping and Georges St-Pierre, for the simple fact that both guys hold the record for most UFC wins. Georges St-Pierre and Michael Bisping have both have 19 wins in the octagon, more than any other man. So, they could really build this fight, who the winner will have the most UFC wins of all time. They're both tied at 19 wins. The winner would have 20. That's definitely a great selling point. Not that fight needs to be sold, because of Georges St-Pierre's star power and Bisping is the new champ at 185. But it's very interesting. I still hope we see Jacare Souza versus Michael Bisping. That's what I want to see. But I would not be disappointed if GSP gets a title shot at 185. I could see some people complaining about that. But I mean, Georges St-Pierre, he retired a champion. And the guy is just an absolute legend. I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at GSP getting the title shot against Michael Bisping, especially when the most wins in the UFC history is on the line. I don't know. Very interesting, very compelling stuff. But let me know who you want to see Michael Bisping face in his first title defense, whether it's Jacare, you know, Rockhold, Weidman. I mean, who knows? I want to hear what you have to think. What you think of this situation, and make a case for what guy you think deserves the next title shot or should get the next title shot. But that's it for this one. I just want to put out a video talking about Michael Bisping on the MMA Hour, talking about future opponents. If you like the video, subscribe. Check me out on Twitter at MMA Boxing Talk 1. That's it for this one. Peace.